Hello, Jordan Sheridan live. It is Wednesday, April 12th, 2023 in the United Corporations of America. And another inferno spreading far and wide with highly dubious statements from the EPA, local health officials, and God knows what permeating throughout the air. So we're going to get into all of it. Obviously, we've been staying on East Palestine, and Lewis did a whole stream on that yesterday, but we have to get to the latest, which is a still ongoing fire in Richmond, Indiana, which is right on the border of Ohio. So although this is happening in Indiana, Ohio's probably getting hit for a second time in 2 months. And this is at a plastics recycling plant, which apparently had multiple violations as an unsafe plant, but nothing was done about it. Shocking. Unsafe plant and a fire hazard. So I guess let's just start with whatever the video we have. I know the live stream doc is kind of rocked and loaded, but this was yesterday afternoon. We don't know what started the fire yet, but there was plastics recycle. Smash the like button, by the way. Share this live stream. There was plastics inside the plant, outside the plant, pretty much everywhere. Colin, if you could play a video of the explosions that we have in whatever order you have them. So that is the chemicals coming out from the plastics fire. We'll share what the EPA and the health officials had to share. I'll just tell you from a conversation I had with an actual chemist. From what I heard, it's a bunch of mixed plastics, various plastics. So hopefully they had a good inventory of that in the least. However, that's kind of scary if they don't. Obviously, plastics burning can lead to dioxins, which, if you've been paying attention to East Palestine, you know the term dioxins, which are cancer-causing chemicals. In the air testing needs to include the possibility of everything or anything. I hope they learned the lessons from East Palestine. It sounds like they haven't, which we're going to get into.
Yeah, based on even just the snippets that we've heard, it's sounding eerily familiar from stances from the EPA.
Yeah, the chemist went on to say these plastics can generate and release pollutants like microplastics, biphenyls, and phthalates, neurotoxic and endocrine disruptors. So neurotoxic and endocrine system. Dioxins and furans are toxic, and when plastics are burnt, the ash produced from burning material that contains plastic and rubber are hazardous, and the fallout of that is settling on surfaces of all types, sadly. Hopefully they are tracking the plume well. I doubt it. Aaron Brockovich got back to me just saying there's probably hundreds of chemicals in that smoke. So yeah. Two of the ones of concern, these are just my own notes, this was shared by CNN as well as the health official, is styrene. Human health effects from exposure to low environmental levels of styrene are unknown. Workers exposed to large amounts of styrene can develop irritation of the eyes and breathing passages with long-term and large exposures. Workers using styrene have had injuries to their nervous systems, which that connects to what the chemist just told me about neurotoxic. There's also benzene concerns, which there have been people in East Palestine who have tested positive in their urine for benzene. The immediate signs and symptoms of exposure to benzene is drowsiness, dizziness, rapid or irregular heartbeat, headaches, tremors, confusion, unconsciousness, a whole lot of shit. But honestly, the jury's out. There's no way of knowing what is being released completely, and I don't really trust the EPA to accurately test or tell us. Colin, can we show some of the other just images I think you have from pretty much residents who are taking pictures there? up close. So that pretty much from somebody's backyard, if you could full screen that, seems like basically very close to where the plant was.
Right. And from what I'm hearing too is that the blackness of the smoke, it feels even more like dark and black and ominous in person than it is coming through in some of the images as well. But to your point, I mean, I highly doubt they're going to have an exact manifest of what types of plastic are in the building. If from what my understanding is it's like a recycling plant, and it seems like they've had this stuff piled heavily in the building, outside of the building, all around the building. For it's been an issue for years, it seems like at this point, to kind of get to this point. There's no way they're going to know all of the different types of plastics that are there set on fire, let alone whatever else is mixed in within it. I have a hard time believing that they're going to be testing for nearly as many things as could be found inside of this mess.
Right. And by the way, we're going to get to this later, but the evacuation zone is only a half mile. They're not even, by the way, testing for air in the actual half mile because they say it's not safe.
Right.
So I'm not a doctor. If you live there, obviously make your own decisions, but I would get the hell out of there if I'm within 3 to 5 miles, frankly.
And just while we're on this, Colin, we actually do have the Google Maps of exactly where this is. This is like right in there's a neighborhood that this is essentially blowing over. If we could just pull up the Google Maps satellite view of this. I know we've got, this is, okay, so this, here we go, yep. We'll give Colin a second to get it there, but this happened right in a neighborhood in the area. The link with the pin should still be right in the chat as well. And where the wind was blowing would be blowing this stuff from this facility right over this neighborhood. So the red pin is the area where the fire was, and the wind was blowing, from my understanding, definitely to the west, potentially a bit to the northwest, right over that area of a fairly dense neighborhood with houses in the area. If you actually zoom in, you can actually see on the kind of left side of the building and on the right side of the building, there's actual debris of some sort piled up. Very well could be some of the plastics and whatnot. We are hearing that stuff was packed up around the outside of the building. This image, I believe, is still from even a couple of years ago, so this is an ongoing thing. Obviously, this is not a current image, but can give you an idea of some of the stuff that is all piled around it. And you can also see it in the street view image. Thanks, Colin, for pulling that, I think, to the left, if you look. You can even see some of the plastics. That might not be the right spot, but that's all right. There's other images that we've got, too, of the plastics. There we go. Kind of all piled up amongst the side of the building. I mean, Jordan, I don't think that there's any way that they've got an inventory of all that shit piled up along the side of the building, let alone whatever the heck is inside of the building.
Well, first of all, I can't confirm it. I can't confirm it, but from what I'm hearing, the owner of the building is from LA. So, yeah, can't confirm, but that's what I've read. And yeah, that does not look like a safe inventory or storage. And we're going to play the clip from the mayor who is throwing the company under the bus, basically saying, well, we cited them multiple times as an unsafe facility, a fire hazard, but we were stuck. It was going through the courts and we couldn't shut them down. I don't know, I don't know Indiana law very well, but if this was such a fire hazard, then something needs to change if the mayor or the governor could not shut down this factory. And by the way, this is not the only plastics or other potentially dangerous contaminant that their building code is not up to date, potentially have fire hazards. That's pretty much littered throughout the industrial Midwest. And for those of you watching, you probably know stories of factories or plants or whatever that are not necessarily the safest. Let's start with that, actually. From a press conference held this morning, the mayor basically, it's not on us, it's on the factory. We cited them multiple times as an unsafe factory and a fire hazard. Let's play that part, Colin.
So yes, this business owner had previously been cited by our unsafe building commission and given an order to clean up the property. That order was ignored. We had been through a court case over that order. Our unsafe building order was upheld in that court case. We have been through several steps since then to order this particular business owner to clean up this property because we were aware that what was operating here was a fire hazard. So this was a fear for us and why we've taken so many steps to prevent this from happening. That business owner is fully responsible for all of this. We have the unsafe building order and the recorded court documents. And everything that's ensued here, the fire, the damages, the risk that our first responders have taken, and the risk these citizens are under, are the responsibility of that negligent business owner. Today, my concern is with our first responders and our citizens. But once we get this fire under control, and I'm positive that everyone is safe, we will turn our full attention to continuing that process to hold this person responsible.
Mr. Mayor, what were you firing from this property? Did you sprinklers? What did you want?
There were a list of requirements that included cleanup and other safety measures to prevent this from happening. We will cover all of that once we make sure everyone's safe. I don't want to turn my attention just yet to the litigation behind this. I want to really keep my attention right now on the safety of our first responders and our citizens.
Well, we asked this question, Mr. Mayor, because are there others, not only in this city, but other cities where you go to court, you ask for something to happen, and here we are days later, now you have a disaster in your hand, which then impacts your first responders and your citizens. Are there other properties here in Richmond and in the state that need to be taken action?
I can't speak to situations in other cities. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I appreciate that the court upheld our ruling. And so we just wish that the property owner and the business owner would have taken this more serious from day one. This person has been negligent and irresponsible, and it's led to putting a lot of people in danger today. Yes, sir. One of our fire investigators made contact with the business owner last evening, but it's an ongoing investigation, so I'm not going to get into any more of that right now. We don't speak on ongoing investigations, but that contact was made last night. I do not believe they're a Richmond resident, but nearby.
I got a lot to say. What do you think on that?
I mean, I'm curious, obviously, without knowing all the specifics of these kind of cases of the lawsuit that they had going on and everything, but you would think if they're cited multiple times and that the city won their side of the lawsuit, that they could have kind of forced the person to clean everything up. I'm curious to look more into the details. I mean, I think it's, is it necessarily like the city government's fault that this giant thing happened? Obviously, it's not going to be directly their fault, right? But if they had the authority to force the cleanup, I'm not sure why they didn't take it. The timing is a little unclear for me on some of that sort of stuff, though, so there's definitely still some digging that I want to do into that. But, yeah, I mean, very quick to just say, yep, yeah, we tried to do what we could do, and we did it, and it's all on the paper and on the record, and the guy just didn't clean it up. I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know those. It's Indiana, so maybe a Republican. Don't you just get a vibe like that's definitely like a young and up and coming, ambitious, ruthless politician who's trying to move up, has eyes on, running for governor, maybe Senate. He's just been toiling around as mayor, but he's ready to. I get Pete Buttigieg vibes a little bit, not as nerdy. But if anybody's from Richmond and, has any dirt on the mayor, I just get weird vibes. By the way, smash that like button, share this live stream. We will have some updates on East Palestine at the end, which you don't know about. I just put it in the live stream doc. But here's a few things. Number one, let's say for argument's sakes, and thank you for the super chats, keep those coming. We'll read them at the end. Let's say for argument's sake that his hands were tied in bureaucracy, they couldn't order him. How many residents in the nearby evacuation zone do you think the city alerted that this plant right next to you that has a cocktail of plastics that are flammable is not following code, is a fire hazard? You get in the mail if there's a sex offender on your block, good. You get in the mail if there might be certain things in your water. If you're lucky, you'll get that. But how many people you think in the community were notified that there's a lawsuit pending, that this plant isn't following code? I doubt it. Secondly, I know because I reported in East Chicago, Indiana. So it's Indiana, but it's called East Chicago. I know Indiana, at least under Mike Pence when he was governor, has some of the most lax environmental regulations in the United Corporations of America. So if you live in Indiana, you could say it in the chat. They're not big on regulations there. So, which would make sense that companies like this would be allowed to. We showed you how things look stacked up outside that warehouse. It would make sense. By the way, if you're a chemist or an expert in the chat, feel free to let us know if you know of information that we're not sharing. But as far as I know, and I just read from a conversation I had with a chemist earlier, you got potential microplastics. Let me read it one more time for those that came late. It can generate and release pollutants like microplastic, biphenyls, phthalates, which are neurotoxic, and endocrine disruptors, and then the dioxins and the furans are toxic. And when plastics are burnt, the ash produced from burning material that contains plastic and rubber are hazardous, and the fallout of that is settling on surfaces of all types, sadly. Hopefully they're tracking the plume well. Well, judging by East Palestine, I'm pretty sure they're not tracking the plume well at all, because we showed, and Lewis caught this, an official with the EPA in East Palestine about 2 weeks ago admitted the EPA had modeled, so the derailment in East Palestine was on Friday, February 3rd. Come Sunday, 2 days after that, the EPA had modeled for a controlled burn, which is not even a real thing, just an explosion of one car. So they only modeled for the effects of that explosion, which direction it might go, environmental effects for one car, and then lo and behold, the next day, it's 4 cars. Five total cars, 4 extras. The EPA certainly didn't have time to effectively model for that. Even if they did have time, I don't really know how you do effectively model for that. And we have questions about that whole thing anyway we're digging into, because I don't buy it. I don't buy what they're saying about the controlled burn. But in this case, I don't really know how they're going to effectively model for where this is going with wind patterns and et cetera, et cetera.
And
I just want to show you, which,
go ahead.
Colin, I don't know if you could pull it up quick. This is a Facebook post, which I thought was completely reckless from a journalist. Let me find it. I put too much in this document.
And
one second.
While Jordan's looking for that too, I mean, he mentioned dioxin, and they mentioned that, they're doing testing outside, and we'll get more into the specifics from actual commentary from the EPA who are on scene right now about the testing that's going to be done, but you're not going to just get a test sample and results for dioxin right away. So I'm very curious to see how quickly they tell these folks who live close by to this that things are okay to go back to. And not to mention, for those of you who don't remember, the scary thing with dioxin is that it's heavier than air. So right now, and several of these other chemicals of concern that we don't even know what they all are yet are going to have similar cases to that, where much of it will be heavier than air. So right now, it's all being carried up with the thermal energy in that freaking black cloud that you're seeing and spreading out. But it will then start to settle down, as Jordan had mentioned, that the chemist that he spoke with is saying will start to settle down in your neighborhood, in your grass, on your car. Some of it can get inside of your home. All of this stuff. And then that's when it starts to become a level of concern here. Dioxin doesn't just go away. It's not water soluble. It's not like it's going to just kind of like trickle away and oh, okay, we washed it and now it's all good. This sort of stuff is the kind of thing that if it lands in your yard and you plant your garden and you plant some Brussels sprouts, and like seeds for Brussels sprouts, and it's in that soil, the Brussels sprouts or other vegetables will actually take in the dioxin, and it will be part of the finished product that you're going to be eating, the Brussels sprouts or whatever it may be, and then you can ingest it, and it's now a part of you. If livestock eat grass, they're grazing fields, they eat grass that has this in it, it gets into the cow, it can pass it on to its offspring. It can pass it on, if it's a dairy cow, into the milk that it's made. So it's a very big concern, especially when you start to see this stuff happening in East Palestine, here in Indiana, and all of the other, scary events that we're starting to, see more and more frequently, it seems. It's a major, major concern.
And keep talking for a little bit. I'm finding this.
Yeah, you're good. So the dioxin definitely an issue. But again, to the point that I started to make on this is the issue is where the EPA is in town right now. They've got a half a mile area that is a mandatory evacuation for half a mile area, from what I understand. Beyond that, they're just telling folks to shelter in place. The EPA is saying that they are currently monitoring the air in the areas outside of that half a mile perimeter. Inside of that half a mile perimeter, they're not doing any testing at all so far, according to a representative of the EPA. We'll get to that statement from him shortly. But right now, they're not doing any air testing inside of that half a mile area, according to a member of the EPA, Jason Sewell is his name. Outside of the area, though, they're doing roving testing, is what they're saying. And that for what the things that they're testing for, things are fine. So I'll be very curious how quickly, after this fire goes out, they tell residents inside of that half a mile circle everything's okay, because you're not going to have dioxin testing right away. Dioxin testing needs to be, you need to be wiping surfaces or collecting soil, taking it to a lab, and then putting it through a series of testing. A lot of it is a little bit complicated. I've got a bit of a understanding of it, but I'm not going to go through it right now. It's not worth going through. But it's going to take some time to get samples back for things like dioxin. That was not done when East Palestine residents were told that it was safe to go back. They're just now starting to get some of those results. So I'll be very curious to see if any lessons have been learned in the last 2 months in telling these residents that it's safe to return home.
So a couple things, and I can't find what I was looking for, but basically what it was is an Ohio journalist, I think from a local Fox station, basically said, there's a massive fire on the border of Indiana and Ohio, but here's our meteorologist saying, not to worry, Ohio, the wind patterns show it's not coming here. Yeah, I wouldn't put my stock in your TV meteorologist to tell you the wind pattern shows it's not coming here. And by the way, this is Indiana and Ohio, the border for Western Ohio. So you're talking Dayton area, I think. So it was just completely irresponsible because this local TV news reporter who's probably making 40 grand a year doesn't know what she's talking about. And I'm pretty sure the meteorologist doesn't know what he's talking about because the clip we're going to show you from the EPA clearly shows he doesn't know what he's talking about. Or he does, but doesn't want to tell. And you kind of see him hesitate to actually answer specific questions because the actual answers are, this is a fucking catastrophe. Sorry. But number two, what I think is also pretty significant here, and let's go down the list before we play the EPA clip. I mean, I put this down. Let's start with where it says 3.5 miles away. That's the first tweet I want to show, Colin. Okay. Wild day here in Richmond, Indiana. The office I work in downtown is 1.5 miles from the fire. My house is 3.5 miles. The sky looks fully black in the area from about 4 to 5 today. Major black clouds still visible out of my back door at sundown. 2,000 people evacuated. So 3.5 miles away, he's seeing the full sky being black. I'm not a meteorologist. I do know when you have that level of plume, and as Erin Brockovich told me, she said, dear Lord, there's hundreds of chemicals in that burning. I'm pretty sure it's not stopping at the half-mile mark. No. So they're saying at 3.5 miles away, they're seeing it. Now let's go on a live doc 10 miles away to that tweet.
And we've got almost 400 people watching right now. Definitely smash the like button. Help get this stream out to more folks. If you're not subscribed already, hit the subscribe button down below. Press the bell for notifications. 10 miles away.
Smash the like button like your life depends on it, because we're going to show you this shit from the EPA and the health department that shows you there's either really incompetent people at the head of this train that is the United Corporations of America, or just blatant liars who are giving you intentionally wrong information. But here we go. Definitely a smell when I came home. Nothing in particular, just the burning smell. Seen some stuff about people finding debris in their yard up to 10 miles away. I didn't this evening, but we'll give it another look. So this is the guy, I think he's a sports reporter actually, that he lives 3.5 miles away, and he's saying definitely a smell. What did they say in East Palestine? If you could smell it, that means there's contaminants.
Well, actually, at first they told you if you can smell it, oh, some of these have a low odor threshold, some of these have a low odor threshold. What they didn't say is, yes, one chemical had a low odor threshold, but the other 10 chemicals and more byproducts don't have a low odor threshold, and if you can smell it, it's already a level of concern. But
Last beast. I live a block away, and it was totally dark. The smell was bad, even with the mask. Email us, info@statuscoup.com. Maybe we could bring you on to get your eyewitness account. Info@statuscoup.com. Colin, be on the lookout if Last Beast emails us, because maybe we could just bring him on kind of quick and dirty style. Thank you, and please be safe if you live that close to it. All right, so we've already gone 10 miles. Let's do the tweet 20 miles away. Poor Colin, we sent him 25 videos and tweets like an hour before this. It starts, I awoke to a heavy smell. I awoke to a heavy smell or burnt plastic from the fire in Richmond, Indiana. If you've ever smelled that smell, you know. The site of the fire is less than 20 miles from my house. I was in the city of Troy during the fire and didn't get back home until sunset, and the smoke plume could still be seen, as could the smoke cloud overhead. I don't know if you could click on those photos. So yeah, a little less than 20 miles away, he's smelling it. And I think Troy is Ohio, is that correct?
I can double check for you.
Troy, Ohio. So 20 miles away in Ohio. So thank God the meteorologist said, don't worry about it. The wind pattern, I'm going to have to find that, so don't just take my word for it. A reporter put on Facebook, an Ohio reporter citing the meteorologist for their local outlet, no offense to, local news people, basically saying if you're in Western Ohio, don't worry, which is absolutely reckless, absolutely batshit. You don't know enough to say don't worry if you're in Western Ohio. It's right on the border. But this is somebody, if you could put up the post one more time, Colin, so we could just, yes, I live in Troy, Ohio, somebody just said. If you could put up that Facebook post. So if you've ever, he's saying he smells it, burnt plastic in Troy, Ohio, which is less than 20 miles from my house. Side of the fire is less than 20 miles from his house in Troy. I don't know what less than 20 miles is. I'm assuming distance between Troy and Richmond. I'll just look it up here.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. The fire is less than 20 miles from his house. So it's really like roughly.
But he's in Troy, so distance between Richmond, Indiana, and Troy, Ohio.
Interesting. It looks more like 40
Almost
miles.
50.
50 miles. Yeah.
All right, whatever. We're thinking less than 20 miles. This guy is smelling it. So, yeah, that's pretty concerning. And then let's move to 30 miles away. Video sent by Dr. Cricket is reporting seeing the smoke 30 miles away from where it's currently burning. If we could show that. Yeah, look at that sky. So, that's visual. Obviously, we don't have reports of it smelling it that far, but you can very clearly see it that far away, which is pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of those chemicals too, and the dioxin in particular, is going to be heavier in the air. It's getting lifted up with the thermal energy from the fire first, and then it will slowly start to settle out underneath that cloud. So we'll see, and eventually, hopefully, the appropriate testing is done. What the effects are there, but seeing it that far away is not good.
Well, we could go further. 37 miles away. Let's show this. Last night, the smoke trail from Richmond, Indiana plastics warehouse fire was visible for miles. Here's a shot I took from my car window, 37 miles south at about 5:30. So you see that plume there. It looks like there's a lot of farmland in this area too. So this plume that's going overhead You know, it remains to be seen how long the actual toxins are in the air before they dissipate. But obviously, if you're over farmland, if you're in the chat and you know this area, animals, crops, etc. So that's not good.
My mother,
That's definitely not good.
Samantha,
Smash that like button. We got 420 people watching, so put that in your pipe, 420, and smoke it. Let's get more people. And I have seen this a lot. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Lewis, but a lot of people think all of these things are not necessarily accidents. And they're just trying to take out all the, low-income, poor, heartland folks. Then once they kill them all, then they could just actually clean these areas and basically make it like a Wall Street in the Midwest. I don't know about all that, but this is happening at a rapid pace in the Midwest. I actually said to Aaron Brockovich, half kidding. If you're watching, Aaron, I'm only half kidding, but I'm really not. We should do a toxic tour, a Brockovich status quo toxic tour, because the Midwest in 10 years is going to be the biggest cancer alley. And she said, Jordan, it's been a cancer alley for 10 years already. So wait for that. I don't have any news, but I'm going to pitch hard to Aaron Brockovich. She's been basically doing an undercover toxic tour for 30 years, but I'm going to pitch to her doing a Brockovich status quo toxic tour in a lot of the communities you don't know about, because it's not, to be clear, it's not just the Midwest, but I mean, in the last, I don't know, 3 months, all we're hearing about is derailments, plant explosions, fires, and a lot of them are particularly in the Midwest.
There'd be no shortage of content for that trip.
Yeah, we would have to wear full hazmat because we'd be shortening our lives significantly. All right, let me give you a little bit more information before we show the EPA. Actually, let's play that. Let's show that red. Let's show that red. You put it in here. As of this morning, the huge smoke cloud has dissipated, no longer visible. Was that the one you had put in there?
The top one.
Oh no, I live directly behind this place.
Yep. It is on the top there. It is on the top there. I live directly behind this place. When the fire department told us to evacuate, I could feel the heat on my face. The smoke didn't look real. It looked CGI. Don't know if I still have a place to go back to or when that may be possible. The second comment, it sounds like the smoke has gone down a bit. It seems like they're not in their home anymore. So the smoke has potentially gone down a bit, but there is definitely still some smoke as of this morning. I've seen some images of it, but this person was leaving their apartment, for the mandatory evacuation, could feel the heat from it, very likely in that neighborhood that we showed you. From the Google Maps kind of overview of where this came from. So again, houses not super far away, apartments not super far away from where this happened inside of that half-mile zone.
Absolutely. So let's play, we played the mayor who basically said this plant had been cited, I think 4 times, and basically saying that we couldn't do anything about it. Obviously, we'll learn if that's true or not. I think they could have done something about it. But the EPA official was there. He spoke for about 5 minutes. And you're going to hear quite a few things that seem very eerily similar to East Palestine. But let's listen. We'll probably start and stop and react to some of the things he said.
All weekend.
Good morning. I'm Jason Sewell with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Yesterday, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management called and asked for our assistance with monitoring air quality in the area. We arrived with contractors, and we've been collecting measurements and roving locations all over town all overnight, and we have crews continuing to do so today. The contaminants we've been monitoring for include particulate matter
It's too loud.
and different sizes, as well as some specific toxic compounds. Unfortunately, the toxic compounds that we're looking for we're not seeing, but everyone needs to keep in mind where smoke is harmful, and we are seeing smoke in our particulate meters.
It's like high velocity.
The BB gun's way more powerful than that.
Oh, I know. It's loud.
Is it a
So
spring?
we understand
Is it a
there's
spring in
smoke is
there, or
going to be
is it
going to Ohio. We're
air?
close to the border. People in Ohio can see it. We did collect some measurements
Yeah,
in Ohio
it's
last
an
night,
electric
and again,
airsoft
what we
rifle
were finding
is what it
was particulate matter, which is
Takes
smoke.
so that's where
As
it's
far as the
getting
safety
power from,
concerns,
and
we
it goes up
collect
the
our
hill,
information and we
south
provide it
east
to the health agencies. And so Christine is going to speak next on what these instruments and readings mean for people.
But it's
And
just
just
so
to be clear,
Yeah.
just to be clear, when you say the toxic compounds we're looking for were not found, does that mean you're providing the scope, or at this point are you saying that there were no toxins found?
So there would definitely be toxins in smoke. We're measuring at the ground level. Of course, heat rises, and the smoke plume is not at ground level for the most part, and dissipates as it goes downwind. But again, where we were not monitoring in the evacuation zone for the safety of my workers, but we were monitoring in the shelter-in-place areas and further areas, again, all the way up to Paris, Ohio.
So can you tell us what chemicals are you using? We talk about toxins. Can you tell us what they are in basic language, and what can those things
It doesn't get basic, but
but you do your
we're
best.
using an instrument that looks for volatile organic compounds. That's a class of compounds that can include things like styrene, and styrene can be put off in the burning plastic. It can include benzene, which can be included in burning plastic. We're also using a benzene-specific instrument and didn't see benzene.
Are these cancer-causing toxins?
Many of them are.
And give me the spectrum, at the best and the worst, what can these based on the chemicals you're talking about, what is their danger zone?
So, questions on what the readings mean for personal health is a health department purview. I don't think we can ask those questions for Christine.
Thanks.
Sure.
Can you explain, as far as obviously the bad group is?
Yeah, I don't know how to pause it, so first of all, just common sense. How in all of these circumstances are a petri dish of highly toxic, cancer-causing carcinogens, volatile organic compounds exploding into this massive plume, but they're not detecting any of it in the air? I mean, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to just the eye test. How is that possible? How are you not detecting concerning levels of it if you're seeing it right there? Secondly,
go ahead.
how could you even fully know at this point? Because it's not out. It's still on fire.
Yes. And they don't even they also don't even know what the hell was inside of the building. It seems like it seems like they don't have an exact manifest. I don't know of what the materials in the building, but it sounds to me a whole lot like at least one of the devices that they're using. When he mentioned VOCs, we're doing this broad VOC test. It sounds a heck of a lot like the same sort of kind of handheld PID, photoionization detector. It would make sense if they're using, it's the US EPA, they're in both places, hazardous materials, yada, 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 that they're using these handheld PID detectors that, there's a million problems with them that I've said to you. You cannot test for the wide range of chemicals that were involved in the train derailment, just like you're not going to be able to test for the wide range of chemicals, most of which they don't even know what the hell they're looking for, in this case, with the PID. So it's like, oh, well, the ones we're looking for we're not finding, but, okay, well, what about all the other ones? Like, we're using a benzene-specific device. Why are you using a benzene-specific device, and what other devices can be used as well to look for more of this stuff? They need to be testing for everything. Testing for certain things that you think may or may not be there, and then not testing for the 100 other things that very well could be there is going to do you no good. If this smoke is going everywhere,
Aaron Brockovich, dear Lord, there are hundreds of chemicals burning in that. And he's talking about, well, we have a specific thing for benzene, and we're also looking for styrene, I think it was, which is, good that you're looking for those things, but there's probably other chemicals of concern.
Right. Based on even just seeing the images from above of Google Maps and the street view stuff of just piles of random plastic around the building, recycled plastic all bundled up and whatnot, I cannot imagine that the inside of that place is organized at all. There are probably all sorts of different types of plastics which require all sorts of different types of inputs to be able to make them. When those things catch on fire, the chemical byproducts of them the list is going to be enormous. The list is going to be enormous. And you're not going to be able to, with a freaking, and again, I'm speculating a little bit that they're using a PID device for a lot of this. It sounds like they're also using a specific device for benzene, but the tests that need to be done to get really specific on a lot of this stuff, to test for specific chemicals, they're going to need to collect samples and then take them into a lab and analyze them in the lab. They need to be, these houses in the half-a-mile radius really need to be, they need real air testing inside of the houses with multiple devices testing for different things, but they also need surfaces to be wiped and swabbed, those swabs and whatnot to be brought into a lab to do real accurate testing that you are not going to know for potentially a couple days that those homes and whatnot are safe. The fact that they're going in and doing tests for VOCs is killing me right now. Here, I hadn't heard that line yet. It sounds a heck of a lot like what they're using in East Palestine to do this testing to tell folks that everything is fine. I'd be curious. I mean, I'm going to follow up with the EPA and see if we can get specifics on which devices. I know the questions to ask now to do this, so stay tuned because we'll definitely reach out and try to get the specifics on what actually they're using for some of this testing.
Yeah. Let's keep playing. Colin, if we have to restart it, that's fine. But I'll tell you where to stop and start.
We did collect some measurements in Ohio last night, and again, what we were finding was particulate matter, which is smoke. As far as the safety concerns, we collect our information and we provide it to the health agencies. And so Christine is going to speak next on what these instruments and readings mean for people.
Just to be clear, when you say the toxic compounds we're looking for were not found, does that mean that you widened the scope, or at this point are you saying that there were no toxins found?
So there would definitely be toxins in smoke. Yeah. We're measuring at the ground level. Of course, heat rises, and the smoke plume is not at ground level for the most part, and dissipates as it goes downwind. But again, where we were monitoring, we were not monitoring in the evacuation zone for the safety of my workers, but we were monitoring in the shelter-in-place areas and further areas, again, all the way up to New Paris, Ohio.
Can you tell us what chemicals are you looking for? We talk about toxins. Can you tell us what they are in basic language, and what can those things
It doesn't get basic, but we're using an instrument that looks for volatile organic compounds. That's a class of compounds that can include things like styrene, and styrene can be put off in the burning plastic. It can include benzene, which can be included in burning plastic. We're also using a benzene-specific instrument and didn't see benzene.
Are these cancer-causing toxins?
Many of them are.
And give me the spectrum. At the best and the worst, what can these based on the chemicals you're talking about, what is their danger zone?
So, questions on what the readings mean for personal health is a health department purview, and you can ask those questions for Christine.
Sure.
Can you explain, as far as obviously the bad group this is, should people be wearing masks? Any precautions that they should take either now, tomorrow, or next week?
I'll leave that question to Christine.
One question for you. I know you mentioned now, obviously this scope is still zero now.
Can you stop it for a second? Can you stop it for a second? Can I ask you a question? And I don't want to trigger anybody in the chat. I know some people are anti-mask for other reasons. Why is it that our health officials in East Palestine, from the EPA on down, and here, you see the fucking smoke behind them? Why are they standing there without masks? What kind of example do you think that sets to the rest of the town? Because they only care about optics. Aaron Brockovich said this to me once. They're not wearing masks because they want to give off the appearance that it's not as bad as you think, which is pretty stupid, just for your own personal health, if you're not wearing masks. Because just because it's not like flying in your immediate direction right there, it's right behind you. Wind patterns change constantly. Just because you're not in the middle of the inferno. The fact that the EPA official, you're about to see the state health official, the mayor, all of these people are not wearing N95 masks while they're speaking. I don't often credit CNN, but a CNN reporter was wearing an N95 mask. It's just crazy to me. I don't know about you, Lewis. I mean, I was giving you grief for not wearing your respirator the whole time in East Palestine, but this is not like a week after. This is as the fire is still going. They're standing there without any protection.
No, and I mean, I can tell you that if I was in East Palestine while the fire was still burning, I certainly would have had a respirator on, for sure. And again, even in this last trip, I was wearing a respirator anytime I was near the creeks and near the streams where the stuff is still getting out into the air. But yes, I agree that a lot of this is optics. And I saw someone in here say, in the comments, say that, oh, it's probably because there's not a real problem. I can't find the comments. No, none of these people were wearing respirators in East Palestine either. They weren't wearing masks in East Palestine either. Are you telling me that you think that East Palestine hasn't been a problem? That there's no one sick there? That nothing's fine, you know, everything's fine and dandy there? Because it's pretty damn clear that that is not the case in East Palestine. So yeah, the fact that these guys are standing with the freaking fire in the background, I mean, just it
kind of reminds me actually. And I don't want to trigger anybody with COVID because obviously people think different things. But there was actually a report that during the whole Kevin McCarthy, 15 votes for him to become speaker, that there were people in Congress, nobody was wearing a mask because COVID is over. People in Congress, nobody was wearing a mask, and they were on the floor of the House for hours because this thing went 15 votes. And then outside the halls of Congress, reporters were reporting that these Congress people were hacking their lungs out, coughing, because several of them had COVID, but didn't want to wear a mask on the floor of Congress for whatever stupid reason. So anyway, sorry to interrupt, but it's just crazy to me that this is going on and no one's wearing a mask. We have politicized mask wearing to the point that even when you definitely should be wearing one, you're not. But what do they care? They have gold-plated health care as government officials, so if they get sick, they'll have health care. Let's keep going.
Yes, that's an excellent question. And I'd like to add, as the fire cools down, you're going to have more ground level smoke, and that will be as important for us to be monitoring as the fire is extinguished as it is during kind of the peak of the fire. So we will stick around.
So are you testing every day, every 8 hours?
No, 24 hours a day.